episode of The Beast Uncut. Now, this is our very special cross show where we bring the hosts of Beat the Beast and the hosts of COASTER-net Uncut together to discuss the biggest news in the theme park industry. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this week we have the big unveiling of the Cedar Point roller coaster. I guess that leak was right after all. Yes, we finally found out what Valravn was.
I was right for the record.
So, stop. So, no, it was not the Lake Erie Monster, unfortunately. It was Valravn, and it was the layout that we saw, leaked a number of weeks ago. But before we get into our topics and our specifics for this evening, let me introduce to you all the hosts of this show. I am, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by my co-host from Beat the Beast, Dwain Sponseller from Parkersburg, West Virginia.
So wonderful to be back with you once again. Love this show. Worked out great the first time. This one should be real interesting.
And also joining us here this evening is Danny Miller from Rochester, New York, my co-host of COASTER-net Uncut.
Yeah, this was an interesting thing to do with the whole Six Flags topic, and I think we did a decent job of beating the beast. You could maybe say that we had some advantageous topics to talk about that were easy to talk about in 4 minutes and 10 seconds, but I am fresh off coming back from a trip to Cedar Point. I got to ride all the rides, got to see some track and supports just prior to the announcement, so excited to talk a little bit about it tonight.
So, as always on Beat the Beast, we use a 4 minute and 10-second clock, which represents the ride time of the world-famous roller coaster down at Kings Island, the Beast. That is the total ride time. And so, we are given 4 minutes and 10 seconds to discuss a particular topic and try to beat the Beast. If we beat it, we are hashtag better than the Beast. If we lose to it, we are hashtag worse than the Beast. And tonight, all 4 topics will be about this new announcement. So we'll be looking at the ride itself, the theme of Valravn. We'll be looking at the new Marina entrance, and also our overall thoughts of how it fits into the park. I guess let's get right into it here. And our first topic is going to be the ride itself. So if we could start that 4 minute and 10-second clock. And there you have it. So what we get is a dive coaster, with 3 inversions. Very reminiscent of the things that we have seen down at Busch Gardens, both at Tampa and, Williamsburg. And, the stats, it looks like it's going to be a little bit higher and a little bit faster. You're probably looking at, just under, or just around 15 feet higher, pushing, between 15 and 20, and a few miles per hour faster. What stuck out to you guys about this layout here? Was there anything that jumped right to your eye?
Well, I'm going to come right out and say what I think a lot of people are thinking here. And Andy, you and I talked about this last night, but I think, generally speaking, I think everyone is in agreement that it's going to be a good ride. It's a good layout. It's not a completely... I've said that I'm excited about it, but not intrigued by it, because it doesn't have that outside the box feeling that maybe we've grown accustomed to with Cedar Point. Millennium Force was something that was completely outside the box. Maverick was something that totally took us by surprise because it didn't set any records and still somehow became an amazing ride. Gatekeeper on paper looked like it would be the best wing coaster, and at the time, I think generally speaking, most people agreed with that. Not everybody, but this is one that you said on paper looks very similar to the other 2, and that's something we're not quite used to. We're only taller by, I think, 7 feet from the one that's in China, and from the Americas, we're larger by less than 20 feet in height, only a few miles per hour faster, a little bit longer. We've got an extra inversion, but everything that we're seeing on Valravn here, we've kind of seen something similar to it. We're starting to see the zero-G rolls come into the ones overseas. So that's not all that, outside the box. An Immelman, we have on all of them pretty much. The dive loop, I don't know if there's a dive loop on any of the ones yet, but at the same time, that's just an Immelman in reverse, so it's not all that earth-shattering. And you get a similar layout, but then you don't have a tunnel or a splashdown, which is kind of like the signature thing for these dive coasters. So at the end of the day, yes, it's going to be a good ride. Maybe it's not quite the out-of-the-box layout that some people were hoping for, but it's going to be an exciting ride. It's going to be a good ride.
Dwayne, what do you think?
Well, I actually really like the idea of a dive coaster. I really enjoy Griffin at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg. It's the only one I've ridden. I mean, I liked it so much I named my dog after it. But when I saw the layout, I was so hoping for something different because it really looked like, and I'll use a word that Dason uses all the time, cookie cutter, and I've been seeing it a lot because it does remind me very much of that ride. You got 2 drops, you've got, very little theming, and it's just kind of there. I don't know really what to say. I don't want to try and sound so negative about it, but I'm very disappointed in the overall look of it, the overall, I know we're going to talk about the ride vehicle or the train a little bit sometime here on this show, and I mean, outside of the restraints, to me, it's just a glorified, better version of Griffin, and better meaning just because it's newer, I guess, because in all reality, to me, it looks pretty much the same ride. And and I don't know if we can go on just the renderings. Coming out, and of course, the Beast beat us. But to finish up, I just don't see the renderings, all right, being the ride. I'm hoping that there's something more to it.
There won't.
I mean, what can we take out of it? But Geeky was the same way. I thought it was a very hyped-up ride, and of course, I was disappointed with that too. So,
yeah, people keep saying, well, Banshee added the few gravestones, but I don't think that that's enough.
That was there in the renderings, though.
Yeah, well, the station was fully built in the renderings, and it's just like I don't know. So speaking of this topic, now I think it transitions nicely into this next piece, which is the theme. So if we could, start that clock again. So starting off, I think that this is one of the more striking logos that Cedar Fair has done in recent years. The name sounds pretty cool, Valravn. The logo is amazing, I think. I love, discounting that it's another bird. I get it. I get that people are kind of tired of the bird theme, but this bird looks pretty cool. It's got the battle armor on it. It's got the crown on it. Even the logo itself, they have this stone king's chair, almost evoking, the new age Game of Thrones feel to it, with this huge stone chair that looks like there'll be a replica of in the park. I don't know if it'll be permanent or just for the media stuff and just for the hype. But hopefully, I think it'd be really cool if they actually built one, and had it be a permanent structure there, because it would give something a little bit more to this thing that really doesn't have any other theme on it whatsoever. I don't understand the station very much. I'm kind of shocked that there's not some sort of tunnel element or splashdown element. I don't know what they're going with this. I thought it would have at least one of the two of them. Even a tunnel element on the second drop that was shaped like maybe like a castle tower with stone would be kind of cool. I'm really surprised they didn't go down any of those roads. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, for me, I'm a huge fan of the name and the logo. I always have been. I get that it's another bird. That doesn't really bother me like it bothers some other people. I think that if you're going to have a ride themed to a bird, the dive coaster makes a lot of sense. I mean, we saw it with Shikra, and Griffin, has bird-like characteristics, so it makes sense to have a dive coaster be something like that. As far as the theming goes, I can only hope that maybe they do some extra stuff to it. There's nothing in the renderings, so again, we've been proven wrong before as far as the renderings go, where there's a lot more or a lot less than what's in the renderings. Typically, Cedar Fair has followed their renderings pretty closely, so that's something to take into consideration. I think this is something that if they don't do a lot of theming for the ride right now, it's something that they could do down the road. They could add on to it. I don't know how likely of a possibility that is, but at the end of the day, it lends itself very well to have good theming, and especially good nighttime theming. So I'll keep my fingers crossed, but at the end of the day, the name and the logo specifically are a home run for me. Dwayne?
Well, I look at Cedar Point as a whole, and I go back 15 years. Let's look at Millennium Force. Was it really themed to much other than the Millennium? Not really.
Nope.
I mean,
it didn't need to be.
Go on and on. Well, I understand that because I understand what type of ride it was. But my point is, if you go on after that, the only ride that I can think of that has any theming at all is Maverick. And that's just because it has elements inside of it that needed it. And I don't like to be the person to kind of go out there and say, well,
it's in a good part of the park to have a theme, too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's in the only part of the park that's really themed.
For example, to me, didn't really have all that much of a theme. And I understand that it was all about putting at the gates, and so I understand that. But with Valravn, I love the name, like you guys. I really like the logo, and I wonder if they're just kind of basing this on the fact that the Valravn story is the bird or whatever that swoops down and picks up the dead soldiers from the battlefield. Maybe they didn't want to have some tunnel to go through, because what type of story would that lend to? Because you don't really see that on the battlefield. So maybe that's what they're going for, and probably more likely the fact that they just decided we're not going to do anything at all, and we'll just keep it the way it is and keep it open for future expansion, like Danny said.
Yeah.
There's a lot of space to do it.
Well, and speaking of expansion in space, the next topic here is the new Marina entrance. And I think that's going to lead into some of the discussion of land use here. So let's start that clock again. Here, the Marina entrance, I'm kind of upset because I thought the Marina entrance had a very classic old school feel to it. It was one of the original entrances of Cedar Point where people would get off the ferries and go into the park. So it had all this ironwork. It had, bronze sculptures, had a lot of trees, was very shaded. It was a very nice experience, quiet, serene, and they basically turned it into a paver plaza like they did with the Windseeker Plaza. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the Windseeker Plaza is amazing with what they did with it there, but I don't think that same feel needed to be replicated on the other side of the park. I understand the belief that you would want a unified theme, a unified look throughout your park. I get that, but when you have a classic old school park like Cedar Point, I think you need to have some of those classic old school elements in it. And that was a simple area that you had that stuff in it, and now that charm's been taken away, and I'm not too happy about that. Do you guys have any thoughts on that Marina entrance, or you guys don't care because you're not huge Cedar Point people?
It's for me. I've only ever used the Marina entrance for the Millennium Walkback on Saturdays. I go to Cedar Point usually once a year. The last couple of years. This year I only went once. Last year I went twice, and the year before I think I went 3 times if you include Media Day. So I try and get there once a year, maybe twice. But at the end of the day, it's really not even a factor for me, because I'm only using that gate if we're meeting there from the Millennium Walkback. Now, that may change maybe next year, Valravn, if it's an early entry ride, then maybe I go over there because, hey, it's right there. So, maybe I utilize that entrance a bit more. As far as the entrance area goes, There's a lot of space around there. Andy, you and I looked at the one rendering, and between the first drop and the airtime hill at the end of the ride, there's a lot of open space there that, like you said, maybe they could do a haunt, or maybe they could put some theming there, or maybe even expand some flat rides. There's a lot of little patches of greenery around that ride and around that new entrance. It's really been opened up, and even where Calypso was, there's still some space there that you could maybe do something small, even if it's like a food stand or something. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential to put more stuff here and make it feel more like an actual entrance to the park, whereas right now, as it is by itself, I think it just feels like you're going in there to be closer to Valravn, but I think there's potential there to make that more of like a second grand entrance.
Well, I wonder if this is part of the 5-year plan, 10-year plan, or whatever. Maybe Valravn was just one part of it for that area, and maybe they're going to put many different things in there, flat rides, and maybe, like you said, some food stands, or like maybe one big food building, like Carowinds has. Maybe I know that might be a little too big for that area, but again, that whole area back there, all the way back to the train. I think it's all going to change over the next 5 to 10 years, and I wonder how much of this is just the beginning of that. Because, again, I've never, I don't really think about the Marina Entrance all that much. I've entered the front gate, and when we used to run back to Maverick all the time, we would come in the gate back there through Challenge Park. Where the water park is. So that was the only two that I've ever utilized. So I've never really even thought about the Marina entrance. And I don't know if they're just trying to, like Andy said, maybe they are trying to, kind of balance the park out, make it all look the same. All 3 entrances are going to look the same. And if you look at the rendering, I would venture to say that the one up front and the 2 on the sides now are looking almost the exact same if you're looking at it from below, just with different rides in its place.
Well, and to finish up that topic, there's always been talk of them knocking down those dorms over there by the Marina Gate. And I've always thought that a ride wouldn't be going there, but an upscale, top-tier hotel would be going there right on the marina. We met when
entrance for those folks.
Exactly, and we met said that he wanted to create this, this tiered system of hotel rooms. And right now, Hotel Breakers is the top end, but Hotel Breakers is expensive, but not crazy expensive. It's expensive when you're paying $300 a night, but you're talking about there might be an opportunity there for $500, $600, $700 a night room that has a beautiful lakefront view, and I don't know. Yeah, and that's always a possibility too. So who knows? I'm going to make a command decision here, and I'm going to add a special 5th topic. So this next topic is going to be a special topic because I think it deserves its own. Because I think this one's going to lend itself to a little debate. So the special topic this evening is going to be the trains themselves, because I think that this was something that was unexpected, that we did not think would happen. So I want to have this debate a little bit.
Dangerous ground here, Mr. Spicoli.
I know. So luckily I get to speak first. So let's start that clock. I think these vests are going to be amazing, and here's why. I think some of the best parts of Gatekeeper are the inversions going through the keyholes when the vest became unlocked and you have this falling sensation out of your chair. I think that's some of the best parts of Gatekeeper. And this dive coaster is going to have a number of those elements. I can just imagine being on that first drop, and I can't even fathom it, how you're going to be hanging forward, and it's going to feel like you're going to fall out. Like, I don't know. Now, if these vests are locked, I'm completely against it. If they're unlocked, I'm completely for it.
Yeah.
If they're unlocked, I think it's going to be an awesome experience, and I think that it might make this dive coaster really stand out from the other ones. Danny, I know that you have a different opinion on that.
Absolutely, I do. And here's the thing: I love the B&M vests when they're not locking. I think they're very nice on Gatekeeper. I think they're very nice on Banshee, because Banshee is an intense ride. As Banshee ages, Banshee will start to beat you up a little bit, and that's when you will really start to appreciate those vests. Right now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Thunderbird, they're wonderful. Now, and on the flying coasters, they have them. They're wonderful. The problem I have with them here is because the dive coasters are designed in such a way that they do not traverse through their elements with a whole lot of speed because of how wide the train is. And, you would be putting very high forces on the riders on the end. So the dive coasters and the wing coasters have always had to be a bit more graceful than the inverted coasters and the sit-down coasters, just by the nature of how the forces work and how physics works. So the problem I see with this is I think the best part of the dive coasters is being in that front row or even in the back row and hanging over the first drop, and when you get let go, you go over a little bit of a curve and then you're going straight down, and you get that floating sensation where your ass physically comes out of the seat and your shoulders are hitting the restraint. And I know that that's an uncomfortable feeling for some, but it's not an uncomfortable feeling, I don't think. You're not being thrown. It's not like you're going over a Maverick or a Skyrush airtime hill. You're simply just kind of floating there, and then you kind of touch the restraint. With the vests, those vests are already going to be resting on your shoulders like they are on Gatekeeper when that happens, so you're not going to get that floating sensation. Gatekeeper's airtime hill, you're supposed to get this floating sensation, but because that hydraulic lap bar is already against your thighs and the vest is already on your shoulders, you don't get that typical airtime sensation. And Dwayne, I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but on Griffin and Shikra, on that first drop, you get an amazing out-of-your-seat float for a good 3, 4, 5 seconds. And these vests, well, if it ages and it gets a little headbangy a little bit, they're going to be nice, but I'd rather have a little bit of discomfort there for the float on the drop. So, and I think there's going to be a noticeable difference, and I'm not quite convinced that it's going to be a good difference. So, Dwayne,
settle the debate. Vests or no vests?
Don't really care. I like the vests on Gatekeeper. Thunderbird is where I like the vest the best, by the way, because I really think it works perfect for that launch and for that short of a ride. But I really liked Maverick, even though I didn't like the restraints because they were so hard. I like the old ones because you actually come up out of your seat, and yes, it hurts your shoulders. Ride is not a problem. But exactly. I am worried about these locking and keeping you down. And if that's the case, the drop's going to mean absolutely nothing because you're never going to come out of your seat to begin with.
Yeah. I hope they learned their lesson with Gatekeeper on that front, because it seems like Holiday World learned it, and they learned it with Banshee too. So hopefully that history
repeats. Because Wild
itself.
Eagles is still locked.
Yeah, and
on X-Flight too, they both lock, and they're significantly less comfortable, I think, because of it.
So our last topic this evening is going to be your overall impression of this ride inside this park. So let's start the clock. And I'll start again. This ride, I don't think there's any question that it's going to be a good ride. I don't think there's any question that most people are going to eat this up. There's no question that the attendance is going to spike because of it. I might even say that more people will be more excited about this ride than probably Gatekeeper. But what I will say is that I do not believe, I will be shocked if this ride even challenges for the best new ride of 2016. I don't see that happening at all. It's too much like what we already have elsewhere in the country. And yes, I like dive coasters, so it will be nice to have one at what I consider to be my home park. I'll get to ride it over and over and over, so that'll be nice. But I'm really taken aback by this ride. Cedar Point has brought people up on the biggest, the baddest, the fastest, the mind-blowing. That's my generation. Every single coaster that was installed broke the mold for what things were done. Raptor broke the mold. I know the stats are just marginal on some things, but the length and the look of it absolutely blew people away. Mantis broke the mold. Obviously, Millennium and Dragster, and even to some extent, Wicked Twister really set the bar for impulse coasters as well. And then obviously Maverick blew up the world on all of this. And Gatekeeper, even if you thought it was hype, it still was radically different from what we had seen. It was radically different from Wild Eagle, from X-Flight, that were more compact and different in nature. I'm just shocked. I'm shocked by Valravn and how similar it is. And maybe there's just not much to do with a dive coaster. Maybe B&M has figured out we just can't do much more than this. And so here's a good ride that people are going to love. And we don't care if it's unique in that way.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with most of that. I mean, it seems like Raptor and Mantis and Millennium and Dragster and Gatekeeper, they were all from a different mold. They're from a bigger, faster, longer, more loops. Not in the case of Millennium and Dragster, but you get the point. They were from a different type of mold. Valravn seems to be from the same mold, while on paper, I will say, on paper, it does have better stats than the other dive coasters. Yeah. It still seems like it's from the same mold. And like I said, it's not that it's not going to be a good ride. It's not that it's not going to be an exciting ride. It's not that it's not going to impress the general public, because it will be good. It will be exciting. It will impress the general public. And at the end of the day, it will be a success for the park in terms of attendance. What it doesn't do, it doesn't have that out-of-the-box, extreme, we took a risk feeling. It doesn't have the feeling said, we're trying something that's never been done before. Yeah. And I think that's where people are upset with this ride. And if you're part of that Cedar Point contingent, like you, Andy, who's grown up going to Cedar Point for years, and you're used to this out-of-the-box, taking a risk feeling, this one doesn't have quite that feeling that the park took a risk when doing this ride. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go next year, I'm going to ride it, and I'm going to love it, I'm sure, and the rest of us are too. So, Dwayne, I gave you about 10 seconds. But
well, it's been that way for most of the show. I think that's been the point, though, for Cedar.
That's all the time you get. No, we'll let you speak, Dwayne. Speak. We'll let you wrap this up.
I think what Danny's saying is exactly right, though, because when you look at it, it comes down to the point of what is going to bring people to the park. Okay? The general public are the ones bringing the family. They're the ones buying the parking, the money, using the money to buy a parking spot or pay for parking. They're buying their entire family tickets to get in the park. They're buying food inside the park, not once but probably twice. They're buying the snacks. They're buying the food. And what is going to bring these people back and keep bringing other families and try to, branch out to more states, more locations? It's going to be a ride that, in my opinion, it's still an intense ride. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's more like Gatekeeper is in a transition type ride. And I think that's the direction that it seems like Cedar Point's going. They're trying to get everybody involved, and it seems like over the years, since Millennium Force, and I understand Top Thrill Dragster and Maverick, but since Maverick, it seems like we're going the other way. We're not taking that risk because we're not trying to win Coaster Wars anymore. We're not trying to beat Magic Mountain or whatever with the most coasters and this and that. It's all about how many people can we get in the park. Can we get them to spend money in the park, and can we get them coming back time and time again? And I think that is the new direction of Cedar Point. And, yes, it's going to be a great ride. Is it a great fit for the park? Yeah, there's not one anywhere in this area. And like you said, Andy, you're going to get a chance to ride it because it's at your home park is something that there are only now 3 in the country. So it's not like it's something that there is a cookie cutter B&M hypercoaster at every park in the country that we're used to. There's only 3. But it's the fact that, like you said, we all want bigger, better, and out of the box, and this was not bigger, better, and out of the box.
Well, can I add something quick here? And like Dwayne, you absolutely hit it. I think the dive coaster is the right type for this park. And I'm gonna drop the hammer here. You people who are complaining about this ride and saying that this is a crap ride, this isn't even in my top 10 of most anticipated for 2016. Screw you, because I know you're going to be at the media day if they invite coaster enthusiasts, and if they don't, I know you're going to be there before the end of the year, and if you're serious about not going to ride it, good riddance, because more rides for me. Okay, Andy, you had something to say.
I apologize for that nonsense right there. Danny Miller expresses opinions all his own sometimes. You know how that goes. But anyway, I just hope that moving into the future, in our 5-year plan episode has been one of the highest, most watched episodes of Uncut of any of our shows, and I think there's an element in there that we kind of expected, I can't say that this is a family ride because it's not. To call this as a family ride is ridiculous. It's not a family ride. But I think we put in there that we would get a coaster in that grouping. That's pretty good. But I'm hoping that moving to 2020, that there is a clear plan to at least have Cedar Point in the discussion for best new ride again. Because it's probably not going to be in the dark ride realm if they go the route that they have, unless they completely blow up that idea and go into a completely different route. It could be if they're planning on doing an RMC transition of Mean Streak. The only worry I have with that is that RMC has done so many projects now. How unique is that going to be now? How out of the box is that going to be? I have no idea what Alan Schilke can do and what other tricks he has up his sleeve. He seems to keep coming up with new stuff, especially with Lightning Rod. And the triple down seems like an amazing element. But if they redid Mean Streak, there's an opportunity. And then, of course, in 2020, I'm really hoping for something more than just a celebration, that there's no way better than to celebrate 150th birthday than to actually give the people a present like one that we've never seen before is what I'm hoping for.
They need to build Millennium Force again. Well, you can't build Millennium Force every year. You can't build Millennium Force every year, but you can sometimes, and I think that's what we want in 2020.
And I think the big year. I think that's exactly it. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I want them to build Millennium Force again. And obviously not a clone. That's not what I'm saying. But I want that same enthusiasm and generating of the hype that Cedar Point has not seen attendance spike since that time. That Millennium Force was the height of their attendance, that it capped off attendance numbers that Cedar Point hasn't even touched recently were set back in 2000.
And it's still the icon after all this new stuff. It's still the icon.
We're talking 20 years. We're talking 20 years later. And I'm not saying I want, I'm saying I want a coaster with that type of hype, with that type of thing where people for the next 20 years are going to be talking about it. And I'm hoping that's the plan here, moving into the future. I really hope that's the plan. Because if it's not, I don't know. It's going to be a really.
But if it is, this is an awfully nice. This is an awfully nice bridge coaster to get us there.
Yes,
so we will say that.
And maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's a bridge coaster. Maybe it was the deal with B&M that B&M had said, hey, we know you have this hole in your lineup. We'd love to build you one of these. Let's put it right there. And hopefully there's this grand plan on the table, for 2020. That's what I hope for. Dwayne, any final thoughts from you this evening?
No, I really do think that with Valravn and being a dive coaster, people are going to show up, whether it be at a media day or the first opening weekend. They're going to go over there. They're going to say, wow, this really does look nice. Yeah. It's a beautiful coaster once it's built. And they're going to say, and they're going to forget everything that they're complaining about right now, because they're going to see a brand new coaster, shiny, brand new, something that they haven't experienced, and probably quite a few people who are going to be there have never experienced one at all. Because I can assure you that most people haven't been to Williamsburg or down into Tampa to ride one. So I guarantee you when they get on it and they ride it for the first time, they might completely change their mind overall, because here they are complaining about something that they probably, 95% of them, have never even experienced to begin with. So I think it's the right fit. It's something that I will enjoy riding because I really like dive coasters, and it is something that the park hasn't had and something that a lot of parks have never seen. So and at the end of the day, it is a roller coaster. It's not like us getting Larson Looper or anything like that. So it's not, it's not to that extent, but, yeah, I'm done.
Danny, any final thoughts this evening?
Just that, again, I think this fits a nice hole in the lineup. When you have so many roller coasters, the question becomes, well, what are we really missing? And I think if you were going to look in the steel coaster category, the one thing that people have said for years that Cedar Point kind of could use is a dive coaster. They don't have the stand-up coaster now, and they said you would get the dive coaster and you would get a floorless coaster. Now we've got a couple floorless coasters now. You could qualify Gatekeepers floorless too if you really wanted to. But at the end of the day, I think the dive coaster does something that I think it's the first time in a while where the focus is on the drop. Millennium Force, it was about the height and the speed. Dragster was about the launch. Gatekeeper, it's about going over the main gate and the keyholes. Maverick, does Maverick really have a signature element? I think Maverick is just the whole package, if you want to be completely honest. Maybe the launch, but I mean, the drop is cool, but it's only 100 feet. I mean, nobody's standing around watching the first drop of Maverick. This is going to be one of those things that everyone takes a picture of. It's going to be like the launch of Dragster. That's why they have the grandstand there. It's going to be like the keyholes at the front gate. It's going to be like Fury at the front gate down at Carowinds. It's going to be what everyone gets their cameras and their phones and, there's, not selfie sticks, but they're going to get all that stuff out and they're going to take pictures, they're going to take video, and they're going to post them on YouTube and say, look at this crazy new ride and how it just hangs you up there. That's something that they don't have in their lineup, so it fits a nice hole. It's going to be a great addition to the park, regardless of what some of you people think. And like I said, if you want to complain about it, don't go, because we'll go and ride it, and we're going to have a great time riding it. So if you don't like it, don't go. Let me ride it. I'm going to ride it plenty of times, and I'm going to love it. So
I believe people are entitled to their opinions, and if they want to say that they don't like this ride, then let them not like it.
Absolutely. They cannot like it, and if they say they don't want to go, they don't have to go either. But I'm going to go. I'm telling you right now, I'm going, and I'm riding it, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So,
well, on that positive note, thanks for that. Let's end the show this evening. Thank you, as always, for joining us and for listening to what we had to say. I think in general we can all agree that it's probably going to be a pretty good ride that we're all going to enjoy riding. So on that. Oh, and before we go, remember our calendars are currently on sale. That if you wish to buy one of these lovely calendars that you see right here behind me, they're on sale right now. They are selling out quickly. So if you have not purchased yours already, you may want to do so in the next few weeks because they may not be around much longer. So on that, thank you for joining us here on The Beast Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Rochester, New York.
And I'm Dwayne Sponseller from Parkersburg, West Virginia. And may the Q lines be ever in your favor.
And right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time.